Сәлеметсіздер ме, құрметті ханымдар.
Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen.
All to the Tabadul Roadshow session here in Astana as part of Astana Finance Days 2025. I am Nazgul Alibayeva from Abu Dhabi Securities Exchange, and I'm honored to open this opening event. Today marks a special occasion. This is the first Tabadul Roadshow session co-hosted by ADX and Astana International Exchange. It is an important moment for our institutions and also for me personally, as being someone from Kazakhstan. To be part of this initiative right here in Astana is truly valuable. This session is more than a meeting of markets. It's a bridge between ideas, regions, and opportunities. Through Tabadul, we aim to foster cross-border investment, enhance market liquidity, and create new pathways for foreign investors to engage in our growing ecosystem. Over the next hour, you will hear from leading ADX and AX brokers, market makers, and ETF issuers. They will share insights into market trends, investment opportunities, and the role of market infrastructure in shaping resilient and dynamic capital markets. Once again, thank you for being here. Let's make this session a strong step forward financial integration. Now, I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Sakhr Asllan, Chief Operations Officer at ADX, and Ms. Roudha Alhaj, Tabadul Lead, who will present on market opportunities at ADX.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, first of all, it's a privilege. I'm very excited to be here again. This is my third trip to Kazakhstan. This is my second time in Astana, and every time we are here, to be honest, we see something new. It's so welcoming, the warmth of the people, and a very nice local foods yesterday. So with that, I will switch back to our presentation, and shared with my colleague, Roudha, we will aim to present two things. It's a roadshow, so it's not only about telling you what's happening in Tabadul. The first 5-6 minutes, I will try to focus about telling you about ADX, about Abu Dhabi Securities Exchange. And the reason and the driver for that, you can build accessibility, you can create connectivity, and then investors' questions, where to invest. I want to know more about the market. So the focus in the first part is ADX. So for many people who don't know, ADX started 25 years ago. Actually, in 2 months, we will celebrate our 25th anniversary in ADX. We started as an equities powerhouse, so trading shares. But it's not, today, we are not only equities. We have a diversified product range. We will talk a bit later about our ETFs market, in which we are very proud of. We have derivatives, specifically futures, single stocks, and index futures. We have warrants. And our market structures, of course, evolved over time. So it's not only retail institutions, we have the market makers, liquidity providers that provide liquidities, provide order book resiliency. And today as well, there is a section there that we will be talking about market makers and liquidity providers. You can see connecting markets and bridging gaps and working with others and partnering with others sits in the core of what we do as well. So you can see Tabadul right there. We have already 9 markets, and we will focus a bit later about what we are doing in Tabadul. It's not only the products, etc., talking about the listed firms. I will not hijack or front-run our brokers and session. Therefore, I will try to keep it very quick here. We have listed firms, of course, many names, and I'll try to link it here. Yesterday, coming in, we are staying in Abu Dhabi Plaza complex. So Abu Dhabi Plaza was the developer of that complex is Aldar, which is a listed firms in ADX. So for people, the first thing you want to create relevance. I want to know the company. I would say that's one of the companies that's very familiar to home. And yesterday actually was one of the things where we say it's Abu Dhabi Plaza. We've done very quick research. So Adar, our listed firm, is the one who is the developer of Abu Dhabi Plaza. Another company, which is, it's actually the banner and the name sits right there in the same building. It's Presight. Presight do run business in Kazakhstan. That's another listed firms. They are focused in AI, in technology. There's many projects, including 2025. It's announced about the smart city, for example, start of the project, and many others. We've heard today from the ADCB Kazakhstan, like CEO earlier in the panel. That's another listed firms. I will not go too much, but ADX has many different segments. So we have the finance, we have technologies, we have the gas and energy, etc. I will stick there, Mr. Abdel Hadi, so I will leave many of that for you guys to talk later in the panel. Another important thing, of course, we've talked about the data vendors, and our data is available with many data vendors, many of our trading members, including the big names, international big names. A few numbers to keep in mind. From a market cap, and this is as of end of 2024, of course, so that's where all the stats coming from. We are ranked in the top 20 markets worldwide from a market capitalization, 3.09 trillions. Our daily traded value, we are in the top 30 globally. It's around, on average, 1.46. billion. Again, traded volumes is there. We are very proud of our investors base, and please keep this number in your mind, 1.1 million, 1.19, it's 1.2 million investors, because we will relate to that when we talk about Tabadul and the number of investors in Tabadul. Now, foreign investors' participation, and I have a more detailed slide about that in a sec, which is this one. Yep. How much of we've talked about 1.2 million investors, 47% of that are foreign investors. We have more than 200 nationalities. And again, very proud when through Tabadul, we have many of Kazakhstan investors investing in ADX and in our listed firms. Now, the growth, it's very important. And the story of growth is something we will talk about more and more in a minute. And this is as of June 2025, so these are actual. So the number of investors growth this year from the beginning of 2025 until June is 28,000. 42% of these are, again, of the new investors are foreigners. That's from the number of investors. If we think about the traded value, we have a very wide distributions of international investors trading on ADX. If I go back in the story, how are we doing from a performance perspective? And again, please keep this in mind, because the first graph on top talking about ADX index. Yep, so this is ADX index, the one in blue, and thinking if you start your investment 10 years ago, how we performed compared to the others. Yeah? And here we are comparing to the regional, to our neighbors, etc. And you can see we are outperforming the MSCI emerging market. Now, I will not go through all the numbers, but in the storytelling in this one, and the most important part, ADX provides to its investors a very diversified and good opportunity for you to come into the market and invest in that market. And Tabadul provide the access to that market. From AIX, from Kasey, from Kazakhstan. So the last one I wanted to touch base on is the IPO market. Again, keep that in mind, because through Tabadul, we will talk about some capabilities where you can participate in this. So ADX, when it comes to the IPO, and this is year to year, we've been ranked year to year in the top 10 exchanges in the world. Actually, in 2024, we came number 8 in the IPOs market. And that is the table in the middle. And if you look into the beginning, here is the top 20 firms went to IPOs from estimate proceeds perspective. Now, with that in mind, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Roudha, who will talk about Tabadul.
Thank you, Sagar. Tabadul is a regional financial powerhouse. We have more than 9 exchanges. 6 of them are live and actively trading, while 3 are on membership onboarding process. We have more than 1 trillion as a market cap. We have more than 660 listed firms collectively. We have 6.7 million investors and more than 17 trading members across different exchanges.
Roudha, these numbers are the key things that we are always proud of Tabadul. Every time a new partner, a new exchange joins the network, adds to the strengths of the total network. So the questions that I hear a lot, and that maybe at least there's a couple of people asked me while we were walking and talking earlier today, trading values, how the trading values look like.
Well, Sagar, numbers speaks for themselves. And from year to year, you can see we have 60 multiples in trading value growth and 42 multiples in volume growth. That's a year-to-year comparison. While we have an exponential growth from quarter-to-quarter basis. So you can see the numbers are increasingly not only year-to-year, but also quarter-to-quarter.
If you are in the business of startups or starting new financial projects, and somebody tells you you have double digits quarter to quarter or 60 or 40 multiples growth year to year, like stuff like these things, I think the valuation of these projects usually changes significantly. The absolute number sometimes, of course, it's in the world of financial market, Tabadul is still an infant. So the absolute number itself it's not the most critical figure, because again, I get this question all the time. It's the growth, the continuous growth we see of and interest in Tabadul quarter to quarter and year to year. So, Roudha, we've talked about the numbers. What else you can tell us about Tabadul?
Well, we've launched IPO feature, and when launching the IPO feature, we've noticed a huge interest from foreign investors. Not only that, we have also activated our market maker services on Muscat Stock Exchange, and we have successfully onboarded 3 members. Onto that, we have additional 2 new exchanges have joined Tabadul last year.
So, if I go back to the IPOs, because we talked about, for example, ADX IPOs, but it's not only ADX. Like, we are very closely working with AIX, with Muscat, and other exchanges to make all these IPOs available on the network. And when we, like, I think the first one, like when we've talked about AD&H Catering, and we have the High Lake Finance there, for example, one of the names, the IPO features went live. The activation of that IPO coming from investors in Kazakhstan happened in, I would say, within the first few weeks. So that is, again, another signal of a strong ties between investors and relationships of these 2 countries. With that, Roudha, thank you very much. And this is our introduction.
Thank you.
We would like to pass back to our colleague Nazgul, which will take you through what's happening next.
Thank you, dear colleagues, for the presentation. Now we are moving to session 1, Brokers Insights. I'm pleased to invite to the stage the moderator of the session, Mr. Saud Al-Noaimi from Tabadul, and our distinguished speakers, Mr. Abdel Hadi Al-Saadi, Chief Executive Officer of BHM Capital, Mr. Alaa Al-Zoubi, Senior Vice President, Head of High Net Worth and Retail Equities Brokerage at Ramz Capital, and Mr. Mikhail Novoselov, Executive Director at Freedom Finance.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Saud Al-Naimi. I am Senior Analyst at Tabadul. I am honored to be the moderator of this session, joined by our distinguished experts. We'll start the session with Mr. Abdel Hadi. Mr. Abdel Hadi, from your point of view, could you please provide us with an economic and financial market overview and opportunities of Abu Dhabi?
Thank you. We have prepared the presentation. The first couple of slides, these are like more of a generic, sorry? Yeah. So these are more generic figures that you can, I mean, these are public, you can Google them, you can get them from ChatGPT, but these are the actual facts about the economy of the UAE and the overall economy of Abu Dhabi. The important part here that to focus is the non-oil sector. They have, it consists approximately 56% of the total GDP for Abu Dhabi. In the last 5 years, the non-oil foreign trade doubled in UAE. And I think the most important factor here is to look at how did we reach there. Abu Dhabi is well known as very stable, resilience, and the foreign wise policy of Abu Dhabi and the foreign relationships of UAE, it managed to put like a balance and to cause like, it's more of a stable and an investment oasis attracting foreign investments towards the region. And having said that, I would like to focus more on the last couple of slides where we have more of an insight. Okay, now here, I think most of these numbers, Mr. Sakar, thankfully, already he covered like about the ADX, the market capitalization, and the growth and so on and so forth. So, but what I would like to highlight here is the IPO and the opportunities that we have in Abu Dhabi. It's not far away. I recall that when we reached the 1 trillion dirhams, the market cap, it was a celebration. And there was like rumors and people talking within like UAE that the market cap of Abu Dhabi Stock Exchange will reach to $1 trillion US. I believe we are almost there with these figures, and with the coming couple of conglomerates, let's say Emirates, Etihad Airlines and the 2.0, these two conglomerates, I think we will achieve that figure, and that's outstanding. Like from going back like 3 or 4 years back to where we are now, this is it's a remarkable growth. For investors, and if we will talk about how the investors will look at the opportunities for investors in Kazakhstan, this slide in specific shows that we still, till this moment, we have approximately 42 companies, listed companies that are trading below their price to book value. You have 44 companies trading below multiple of 10 price to earning, and you still have companies, a 43 listed company trading, paying dividend yield of 5% and above. This is a huge opportunity for investors, and we believe that given the current circumstances, as everyone, I believe, heard about the positioning of UAE in terms of AI and the tie-ups with NVIDIA and the tie-ups with Microsoft and so on and so forth, there is a huge opportunity for a mutual collaboration. Thank you.
We'll move to Mr. Alaa. Mr. Alaa, speaking of market opportunity, please share with us, share your insights into the listed companies and which sectors in the UAE are currently most attractive for long-term investors.
Thank you, Saud. On behalf of Ramz Capital, I would like to thank Astana International Financial Center and Astana International Exchange for hosting us at Astana Finance Day 2025. As Mr. Sagar briefed, we have in UAE maybe more than 200 listed instruments in the financial markets. These 200 securities distributed across approximately 20 economic sectors. And these sectors, most of these sectors represent a very attractive investment opportunities for the long-term investor specifically. And this diversification creates a value for the clients, enable them to build a well portfolio that balance between the income generation and the capital appreciation potential. If we want to talk about the most and the common sectors which is preferred by the long-term investors, we can choose the most important, which is, let's say, 5 to 6 sectors among, and these sectors backed and supported by, let's say, attractiveness to the clients, because they are very generous in cash dividends, they are very strong fundamentally, and they are potential growth in the future. So if we talk about the energy and the utilities, we have examples of the listed companies like ADNOC Gas and Taqa and Diwa, which represent the most utilities sector. And they are very steady, they give a very generous dividend, and they are supported by the government. This enables them to maintain their sustainability and their potential growth in the future. The second sector may be the financial sector and the banking sector. We have examples like First Abu Dhabi Bank and Emirates MBD and I think Dubai Islamic Bank. These three banks give a fixed, generous dividend every year. They are fundamentally very strong, and they are governed and they are compliant with all the international standards. If we talk about the technology and the AI sector, we have International Holding Company, and Etisalat, which is the telecommunication sector, and the third one is Group 42, which represent the modern technology and the AI principles. If we talk about the real estate sector, which is the most important, and all the investors think about it after the banking sector, the real estate, we have two companies which represent the property development in UAE in general, A'mar and Addar. These two companies represent the majority of the real estate sector in UAE. They have very, very strong potential growth because of the population increase every year. They have the geographical distribution and participation available, and they have also the dividend distribution. Then we'll talk about the healthcare and the logistics sector. If you talk about the healthcare, and previously in the past it was not represented in the financial market. Recently we witnessed 2 to 3 companies specifically specialized in the healthcare sector. These are partnered with the government, they are supported, and they are growing very fast. Logistics sector also, it's very important in UAE. We have in UAE AD Ports, which is Abu Dhabi Ports, which is considered one of the top players internationally from the logistics service providers. And all these companies have very strong advantages, potential growth, dividend distribution policy, which is stable, and the third one is the government support for all these sectors. On top of that, if we will talk about the board members and the executive management of these listed companies, they uphold the highest standards and the governance strategies, and they ensure the compliance with the applicable rules and regulation in the country. All these aspects considered the backbone of any investment, long-term investor to choose the investment for him.
We'll move to Mr. Mikhail from Freedom Finance. Mr. Mikhail, how do you see cross-border trading through Tabadul benefiting investors? Could you please also share some figures and numbers of your client investment behaviors and preference while using Tabadul?
Certainly. I mean, thanks for having me, and it's a great pleasure to be joining everyone here today in Astana. And let me start by saying that I truly believe that Tabadul is a unique project in its own right, a unique concept. And I do not mean it lightly, like a random accolade or a pleasantry, because I really struggle to find anything quite like it anywhere in the world. Of course, there is like Hong Kong Stock Connect, but it's very restrictive. It only has 3 exchanges, mostly serves like Chinese internal interests and so on. So essentially, Tabadul is a very unique thing. And you know, for a lay person, for a retail investor, international investing is often a huge pain. What I mean by that, especially if you want to invest beyond the usual setup of America, Europe, or Hong Kong. Like if you want to enter some other market, it's a huge pain. Because, first of all, wire transfers are painful. Dealing with correspondent banks is awful. Going through all the KYC hurdles, awful. And we can go on and on and on, like tax implications. Also not very pleasant, especially when we're dealing with cross-border stuff. And that's why Tabadul is so great. When you can trade international stuff on many exchanges through your domestic broker without having to worry about anything, it's just huge. And that's why I believe this simplicity and the freedom that Tabadul provides is second to none. However, moving on to your second question, I do not think that all these cool features of Tabadul I just listed are appreciated enough by investors. Because you see, I checked the stats, and well, let me say the following. I have good news and bad news, as it always goes. No ugly news today. So the good news is, Tabadul works, and it works as intended. Our clients do trade on it, and seem to enjoy it quite a bit. The bad news, though, is that the total volume of securities traded in UAE dirhams is around 200,000. Yeah, I know. It's around $50,000, and that's the volume. We are not counting AIX, just Kazakhstani investors trading on ADX. And to quote the one and only Matthew McConaughey's character from The Wolf of Wall Street, these are rookie numbers in this business, and we got to pump these numbers up. But that's exactly what they are. They are rookie numbers, and in the Army vernacular, a rookie is a first-year cadet, right? And you never expect a first-year cadet to be able to command an army, to write a strategic treatise or something. Our Tabadul, and I'm saying our because it's a thing that we created together, is essentially just a baby, a 1-year-old baby, right? And we do not expect a baby to be able to run a marathon or solve a differential equation, right? We expect a baby to crawl and say mama and all, and it does that. And the cool thing that babies have is the potential, because the baby can grow into anyone he wants and anyone he can. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. Despite fairly low volumes, very low volumes, I see tremendous potential if we can deliver the most important things to our clients, to our investors, such as visibility, such as trust. And that's exactly why the things that we're holding right now, roadshows like that, are extremely important. Because without visibility, without relevance, it won't work. Our baby will not grow. And we all really want it to grow.
Mr. Alaa, from a Ramz perspective, what is the broker role in facilitating investor attraction and engagement in the UAE market?
From the broker perspective, or from a Ramz perspective in general, the first role, the broker should understand the investor's needs. Then, when you understand what the investor needs, you can build or tailor it what product or service you can provide him. You should know what's the time frame, what's the amount you want to invest, which sectors he prefer, what risk appetite he have. So all these things under the understanding of the client or the investor. Then you can start give him the advice, you can give him the support like strategic planning for the portfolio, give him the insight about the sectors, what's the profitable or what's the best in each sector. So these topics understanding the client's need. This is number one. The second one, I think the broker or any business in general should maintain a sustainable and long-term enhancement of the relationship. You should keep him up to date. You should keep your softwares and applications up to date. Give him the accessibility. Give him the easy of use for your applications. All these things what the investor looking for from the broker side. Then there is one point also, you can call it social participation, which is the education. Educating the clients with the market information and the data is part of our job. A lot of investors looking for an investment, but they don't know how to choose it. They don't know how to distribute their investment. So educating the clients, give him the information, give him the data. This is also a very important point. Above and all, your trust with your client is very important. Trust and compliance and respecting the rules and regulation in all exchanges in general. This will give the investor a rest. He can invest with you peacefully. He cannot worry, or there is no risk at his money or his investment, especially if he is a long-term investor. The market access and the multiple exchange also, this is a crucial point for them. Long-term investors, especially the institutional investors or the high net worth investors, they are looking in so many geographical distribution. If you give them this access in one application, one access point, this will be very nice for them. In Ramz, we call it the digital shopping mall. He can go inside the application or the website. He can choose the service he wants. He can choose the geographic or the exchange he wants to invest. These components, the investors are looking mainly. And we, from our experience, we understood that all these points are very important for him to keep him with you. That's it.
Mr. Abdel Hadi, a common issue investors have is limited visibility and market access of available instruments. What is your thought on this challenge, and what solution you have recommend to improve it?
Well, this is a very important challenge, and as rightly mentioned, for any investor to go and do investments, especially now we're talking about Tabadul, we're talking about someone who's living somewhere used to certain equities who wants to invest elsewhere, and that sort of ambiguity, that fear of entering into a new market, this is something that we need to break, and the best thing to do about that is transparency. The more transparent we are, the better it is. It's very well known that investors, whether retail or internationals, if they want to do investments, they need to feel secured, as my colleague here mentioned. They need to have full access to data, and I believe ADX in the past few years, they've done a tremendous job of openness, allowing access, digital access to all data available, digital IPO, digital onboarding of clients, and so on and so forth, adapting so much technology, AI, and having said that, this is already translated into actual figures. From what we saw, there is a consistent, tremendous growth year over year in number of accounts and number of foreign investments flowing to the country. So basically, the best thing to do always is to focus on the corporate governance part of the listed companies, and this is done by the regulator as well as the market, in addition to the transparency. And I believe ADX, they've done a tremendous job, but still more to come, as now everyone knows AI became the word, and this is the main topic worldwide. And I believe Mr. Abdullah, and he's one of the guys I know that has been the vision about the AI and adopting technology. It's been there for Since I knew him, we've been talking about that.
Thank you, Mr. Abdel Hadi. Mr. Mikhail, what challenges have your company encountered in relation to the Tabadul project? And what potential solutions or approaches do you see for overcoming them?
All right. I believe Mr. Zoubi has already highlighted the importance of trust in building the relationship between the broker and the client. And I do believe that it's exactly the main issue that we encountered when starting with Tabadul. What I mean by that is when you offer a new product to a client, for this product to be just transparent, just open, is not enough. You got to be like 120% transparent if it makes any physical sense, right? Because even right now, ADX, I believe, is perceived as something virtual, not quite there. Take AIX, for example. There's a huge building in central Astana. You can go there, you can see the people and all. The same thing is true of, say, American exchanges. Obviously, you can see all the workings, all the gears shifting and all, but you know that Wall Street exists, there's a statue of the bull and all that. You kind of trust that because there is a physical location that you can be certain of. And that's why I believe the first thing that we got to do to increase investor interest in Tabadul is to speak more about the inner workings of everything, how depositories work, where do we store, where do we keep and safeguard clients' assets and all. I mean, we know they're safeguarded, but the clients really don't. So we got to be very, very open and precise about it, about every single minute detail of where their money goes. Because obviously clients might be afraid that their money will go to somewhere in the Middle East and disappear, and we do not want that. Second thing, equally important, I believe, is visibility. And visibility in the broad sense, it's not just about listed companies or the instruments themselves. It's about the whole economic situation and all. Because right now, I mean, the clients can find the instruments listed on ADX, but very often just finding them is not enough, right? You've got to know the context, you've got to know what the company does, how it operates, and if you are very intimately familiar with that, it's much easier. Because you see, even though our trading volume is rather low, the most popular companies are Preside AI and Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank. Why so? Because they're present in Kazakhstan. Preside has an office in Astana, and ADCB is located in central Almaty once again. People know them, and they buy them. That's always the case even with American companies. People buy what they know. And unless we tell them, hey, look, it's a cool thing, you might be familiar with that, perhaps through a proxy, through a product, through something, they won't buy it. Because obviously they're cautious, and we cannot blame them for being cautious. People want to earn more and avoid risks. So that's the two aspects that are key and that we are not enough right now and that we should be doing. That's building trust through showing the inner workings of everything, and it's building visibility for what we have on the market, how to get it, and how it relates to the economy and the needs of people as a whole.
Thank you, everybody. We'll hand it to Nazgul.
Thank you, esteemed speakers, for valuable insights. We now proceed to session 2, ETF issuer and market maker insights. Photo. Sure. Thank you. We now proceed to session 2, ETF issuer and market maker insights. I'm pleased to give the floor to Mr. Sherif Salem, partner and head of public markets at Lunate, and Mr. Sakar Asllan, Chief Operations Officer at ADX.
Good afternoon again. So I'm very pleased to be here again, but this time in a different capacity. So it's a fireside chat. And again, very excited to have Mr. Sherif with me. He is the expert in the ETFs. At least this is where everything I have questions of. I keep coming back to Mr. Sherif. If you noticed, when I was presenting about ADX, I told you, keep the index in mind. Yeah? So see the growth of the index. And we keep getting these questions in the previous panel. I don't know what to buy. Investors want to trade AIX, or investors from Kazakhstan want to trade in ADX. The first thing they ask, which share? Yeah? I don't know these shares. And then I think, I will hand over to Mr. Sherif because I think he has the solution for this.
Thank you for that segue, because that's perfect. I was just thinking when I saw the performance that you had put up of ADX, that the perfect way to get that exact performance is to invest in an ETF. ETFs are a perfect, simple and easy and cost-effective way to get exposure across many different stocks with one trade. And the ETFs that we'll talk about today, a lot of them give access across global markets, across different asset classes, and now most recently with the launch of our latest, give also access to a theme where if you have no idea about anything about it or anything about companies that benefit from it or are driving it, ETFs are a perfect way to, with one trade, get exposure to everything.
So if I want to be investing in ADX index, so just to track that interesting performance, what is the ETF that I should buy? And maybe with that, maybe some people in the room, how much they are exposed to, what is an ETF? I will put the hat of the questions I'm getting sometimes.
Yeah, so exchange traded funds are very simple in the fact that they provide, it's a basket of securities, so anywhere between 30 and there are some ETFs that have 5,000 securities within them. And it enables an investor to invest in all of those stocks with just one trade. Not only is it fast and simple, it's also cost effective, and it helps you diversify your risk, because with one ETF you get exposure to, in ETFs that we manage, 30 stocks, but up to 50 and 60 stocks. So the risk is distributed across everything. But just to give perhaps a brief background on the exchange traded funds that are listed on ADX and that are accessible through Tabadul. So we launched our first ETF in July 2020. It was a UAE Sharia ETF. We have two share classes. One that gives income is the distributing share class. Another one is an accumulating share class. We followed that up with a conventional UAE UCITS ETF. Again, with an accumulating and a distributing. And then I think in 2022 we launched the CHADEX 15 ETF, which ADX has the FTSE ADX 15, which is the top 15 biggest and most liquid stocks listed on ADX. The CHADEX 15 replicates that index. So in fact, if you want quick exposure, quick, fast exposure to the UAE, whether it be Sharia compliant, conventional, or specific to ADX, then it's through those three ETFs. And the beauty of it is it's not about getting exposure to an index. At the end of the day, a stock market is representative, or is supposed to be representative and reflective of the economy. And so by buying the ETF, by buying a UAE ETF, by buying an ADX ETF, you're buying the economy, you're buying the drivers of that economy. And if you believe in the UAE economy, if you believe in Abu Dhabi economy and its growth, then that is a reflection, because you've got real estate, you've got oil and gas, you've got telecom, you've got banking, all within one trade.
So I will, if I can hold you there for a second. You mentioned multiple different type of ETFs, and how I can link that to dividends. So some investors would like to buy a share because they are interested with a high dividend yield. Like the word dividend, does that exist in the ETF world? Because I think you mentioned different types there. If you can highlight a bit more there.
Yeah, it does. But the dividend that any ETF, that an index tracking ETF distributes, will be dependent on the constituents of that index or that ETF. So the dividend is just reflective of the market. In the UAE, dividends are quite high. So our UAE Sharia and our UAE UCITS ETFs, last 12 months it was around 3.5% dividend yield. Again, it's reflective of the companies underlying. A lot of the companies, some of them are in growth phase, so may not be so. In terms of dividend, they don't pay as much as some of the bigger companies. So in a combined or as an aggregate, 3.5 is representative of the market. And sorry, just to add, and all our other ETFs are also dividend paying, but again reflective of the underlying. So you'll see, for example, Pakistan actually is one of the interesting ones. Pakistan has done tremendously when we have an ETF on Pakistan. That's done tremendously well since it's launched. And that also has a dividend yield of about 4%. And it's returned, so on an annual basis, Pakistan in dollar terms on an annual basis has returned 41% annualized since we launched it in 2023. So that has been a surprising performance. But yeah, so we do distribute.
Speaking on surprises, yesterday we were like having a walk around AD Plaza. And while we are doing that, my colleagues and I, including our manager, we were looking, and there was this post about the ETF's performance in ADX. And even we live in that market, but when you don't look into the numbers over a longer period of time, I was pleasantly surprised. If I was an investor in these ETFs, which I am, to be honest with you, because that's a product we are allowed to trade. It's a basket. It was very strong performance in the ETFs issued in ADX. Yeah. So can you share some light?
Because actually it's not fair since I mentioned Pakistan, 41% annualized. So interestingly, we launched our first ETF July 2020, COVID. We launched it. People thought we were crazy that we were launching an ETF at that time. As it turned out, it was near the bottom of the market. It was just before the market started to turn around. So that on an annualized basis, since we launched it, it's been doing 20% on annualized. The UAE UCITS, which was launched at the beginning of 2021, that's done 14.5 annualized basis. And that's outside, so that's a price performance. That's not taking into account the dividend that you would have also been paid at the time. So definitely the UAE has been one of the top performers in terms of stock markets over the past period.
I'll switch gears a bit, talking about diversification. So different type of ETFs exposing the investor to different type of economies. Like you guys were super successful doing different ETFs focusing on different countries and even different asset classes like fixed income, Please let us take
So
us through the journey.
Yeah, so the strategy, if you look at it, it was planned this way. So when we first launched, the main idea was to give investors exposure to their own local market, investors that did not know what to invest in. So you launch an ETF that gives you broad-based exposure, Sharia compliant, conventional. Then we wanted, a lot of UAE investors are interested in Saudi, but it's very difficult to open accounts, etc. And so we launched Saudi, we launched Kuwait, again, the biggest markets in our region. The global, everyone's interested in the US. US came next. The big emerging markets, China, India, Turkey, Pakistan, and they're all Sharia compliant, which again is different because I think you haven't had in the past ETF issuers in the Middle East. So I don't think Sharia was something that a lot of managers put importance to, but we realize our investors do. And so we've ended up with the only Sharia specific country ETFs in the world. So there is no other India Sharia ETF listed outside India. There's a couple, I think, listed within India, but outside. Turkey, we're one of the few. China, we're one of the few. So that's actually played quite well. Once we had those covered, and then we in terms of the core countries, it was Germany, representative of Europe, Japan, representative of Asia. Then we took the next step of introducing fixed income. And then we did the UAE. So if you want exposure to just the UAE corporate and sovereign bonds, you can get it through the Bonday ETF, which gives it, and that one is coupon is somewhere in the 4.4, 4.3. Obviously, will come down. It tracks the US a lot, the performance of that or the yield on that. But that has done well. We followed that with a global sukuk to give exposure to for Sharia compliant investors, and then to give the full range. So we had the long end, we wanted the short end, so we did the US Treasuries under a year. US Treasuries also around 4% now, a little over 4%. And then most recently now, going into the thematics with the launch of quantum computing.
So two things there, like we will hold to the thematic towards the end because that's super exciting, especially with earlier comments today. But I think echoing from previous panel, and I'm here echoing the panelists saying, if you don't know where to buy, you need to diversify and looking into different economies. So I get this question. So if I buy Germany's ETF, just as an example, listed on ADX, and from an accessibility perspective, if you like, we have multiple Kazakhstani brokers member on ADX, like Freedom, Heilig, and the others. Yeah, if you are a client of them, you can buy ADX ETFs. So if I go and click Germany's ETF, actually, what are the, if you can give us a couple of famous examples, links in people's head, what I'm actually buying?
Yeah.
Just as an example.
You're buying Deutsche Bank, Lufthansa, Adidas, name escapes me now, the famous, SAP. So you're buying those, and interestingly enough, you know, it's sometimes we look at that also from a saleability point of view. Sometimes we've, for example, looked at launching. We actually looked at launching Sharia Japan, Sharia Germany, Sharia Japan. But what happens when you put in the Sharia filter is a lot of these companies, the more famous companies, because highly indebted and so forth, so a lot of them get dropped out, and so we end up going with the conventional.
But this is actually, when you mentioned that the other day, it clicked in my mind, because, okay, I know Adidas, I know these companies. Now, instead of buying each one by itself, quite costly, maybe I just buy the ETFs, because it gives me access to all this, the performance on all this. Equally, the US, you have something called US growth, I believe.
US growth and US value. So when we did when we were doing the US S&P, we realized that because we wanted it to be a dividend distributing ETF, we did the S&P and realized that if you just do S&P, you end up with all the tech names which don't pay out much in dividends. So we did two. We did the US growth, which is the S&P 500, and then US value, which is tracking an S&P dividends aristocrats. So it's companies that have continuously increased their dividends on an annual basis. So we had two versions where one, the value, you have the more traditional companies that have been around for decades that pay dividends, whereas the growth is much less in terms of dividend payments. But yeah, it's true. I mean, just to go back, I mean that's one of the beauties of ETF is, you know, you buy an ETF where you know maybe a handful of the companies and you want exposure. By buying the ETF, you get exposure to a company or two that you may have never have heard of, and they end up going up in value like crazy and bringing up the ETF. So it's a benefit of having this diversification that not only is it protecting you on the downside, but it can actually benefit you benefit you in the upside.
We can have this session forever.
This can go forever.
I have one more. I think we've been hearing about the thematic ETF and the exposure to the quantum. Yeah, like earlier today in the opening, it was one of the eye captures. So, anything you want to tell us about the new coming ETFs and ADX?
No, I mean it's very exciting. It's like I said, it's the next step after what we classify as core ETFs, the pure index plays, country plays, the pure fixed income play. Now it's themes, thematics, a sector, and an idea that's obviously in the headlines. It's in early stages. It's been quoted that you know, ChatGPT only came into being or came into people's knowledge in early 2020s, 21. It had been worked on since 2010. And actually the theory behind AI, I only learned this recently, but the theory behind AI started 60, 70 years ago. Quantum is not at the 60, but we're somewhere where it's still 5, 7, 10 years away from really taking off. And this is the best time. And the ETF is perfect because, especially with quantum, where you have companies that will make it and companies that will fold. By buying the ETF, you get exposure to all of them, and you hope that the ones that will make it will be the Googles, the Amazons, that have gone up in triple digits, that will make up for those small amount of companies. And it's the perfect way to get exposure to that whole theme through the ETF.
Like, again, to close it up, I think first, ADX with partnership with Lunate, like we are the most active ETF markets in the GCC region. I think we have great partners, and it's an invitation for all of you guys. Please come and invest with our ETFs on ADX. It's via Tabadul. It was enabled in Tabadul, relatively new, based on the request from investors. So with that, I would like definitely to thank my esteemed guest, Mr. Sherif, flying all the way here to do this with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sherif Salem. While Mr. Sakir remains on stage, I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Galen Moore, Head of Cash Equity and Derivative Market Making at BHM Capital.
I think fireside chat continues. This is our last session in Tabadul Roadshow, and I'm super pleased to have one of the professionals that we have a lot of discussions and arguments, me and Galen's on the phone, from trading control, trading rooms to market making. So with that, thank you very much, Galen.
Thank you for, you need to switch it on. Yeah. Oh, thank you for inviting me, Saka. Very pleased to be here. As with the last session of today, I think we can have ask me anything about market making, Saka. So it's up to you to.
Let's start with the simplest thing, liquidity. So when people talk market makers, they talk about liquidity. So I'll just start with a very open questions. Tell us more about liquidity and market maker impacts into liquidity itself.
So liquidity means different things to different people. If you're an institution, you tend to look at your exit liquidity before your entry liquidity. If you're a hedge fund, you need liquidity to move, we call them fast money accounts. So they look at liquidity slightly differently. Retail obviously want liquidity to move in and out, and volatility. The index providers who are vital for the ADX, the MSCI, the FTSE, they need liquidity on individual stock bases to have shares which qualify for the index. And so at the heart of this liquidity, we tend to think of the market makers. So what we do as market makers, we push liquidity into the market by consistently providing bid and offer prices that these counterparties can trade on and trade against. And speaking to a point you made earlier, I worked with Mr. Abdel nearly 13 years ago now to start market making on the ADX. And to give some context to the growth we've seen, 13 years ago, if we did 30, 40 trades a day, this would be a busy day for a market maker. Now we can do up to 7,500 trades a day. And that speaks to another theme which has been important today, which is technology.
So you've talked about the number of trades, and you talked about, as a market maker, you put orders. You put the buy order and the sell order.
Yeah.
So if I'm an investor and I can see orders, because the worst thing for an investor is not seeing any orders that they can trade in, correct? So can you maybe tell us a bit more, like BHM is recognized as one of the largest group of our market makers. Like we are, again, proud in ADX. We have a healthy market structure in which market makers and LPs represents a good chunk of our daily traded value. So from your perspective, like first of all, how you see that market growth, how you see that your activity gives more reliability and trust in the market?
So we always have an obligation to the exchange to place a certain number of orders, bids and offers in the market. And so this obligation means that investors have the knowledge and the confidence that there is always a price to trade against. So it's important to remember as well is that we recycle this inventory regularly. And unlike a lot of other investors whose time frame is perhaps weeks, months, and even years in the case of a pension fund, you know, our holding period is microseconds to a couple of hours if we've got a long-term position. So, you know, we recycle this stock in a very, very aggressive manner.
Very nice. Yeah, so there is different themes, or different, let's say, roles as a market maker you can do. Like in our world, we have a market maker, liquidity providers, stabilization agents. Can you give us more highlights on all these different roles?
Sure. So a market maker, I trade with Mr. Abdel Hadi's capital. So this is something which is risk money for BHM Capital that we put into the market. And we take positions and we manage risk based on certain internal parameters we have for how much risk we want to take. So as a market maker, we elect to be a market maker in certain stocks. And if you look at the liquidity profile of a market, and this goes to most markets, It's like an inverted pyramid. So the top 30% of liquidity, or 30% of stocks, get 70% of the liquidity. And so in a lot of cases, you have companies and issuers which want to see their stock more liquid. And they will approach us to act as a liquidity provider on their behalf on the exchange. And their motivation for doing this varies. They may want to get their liquidity and get their turnover to a point which they're accepted into an index. They may have a corporate action, or they may just feel that they want to be more represented with institutional investors who want to see their liquidity profile increase.
So on that one, so if I understand this right, or I've just tried to highlight it more, if there is already trading and liquidity, you can do market making, because that makes sense. You can create some value for the company as well.
Yes.
If the company is not liquid and there is not much activity happening, there is a higher risk for you to trade that on your own.
Yeah. So the motivation, and this is very important. As a market maker, my primary objective is profit.
Of course.
That's the role of my role as a market maker. As a liquidity provider, the issuer has asked me to provide liquidity, and so my motivation isn't so much P&L, but this is the issuer's money, so we've got a lot of responsibility towards that. But it's to push liquidity into the market, and that means making sure there's a narrow spread, making sure that there's always bid and offer prices.
And the relevance to this when we talk about Tabadul is in markets with market makers, and there is liquidity, there is this concept of liquidity discount or liquidity premium, and as well when you have a new IPOs and there is stabilization agent. Maybe we focus on the stabilization and we'll come back to the liquidity.
Yeah, so a stabilization agent, which we've done numerous times now on the ADX, is something which we act as a stabilization immediately after the IPO. So the day of the IPO, we act as a stabilization agent for 30 days. And our role there is to make sure that the volatility after the IPO is not egregious. So we want to ensure that there's bids below the IPO price to make sure that the IPO is a success. And that again is something which gives investors confidence in the IPO, knowing that there's a stabilization agent.
Back to the liquidity discount and or liquidity premium. I think when you have a company which is not having much liquidity and you go in there and you had an liquidity provider contract, what does before and after look like? And we can be on average high level. I know some of these numbers we cannot share to the public, but
we generally see a significant, and that's generally 1 to 1.5x the liquidity increase. So we can take very clearly, and anyone can do these statistics, the 3-month average before appointment of a liquidity provider, and the 3-month average after the appointment of a liquidity provider. So there's easily seen metrics on that, but we also measure the how much turnover we do as a liquidity provider as a percentage of the market turnover, and this statistic as well we can see is generally between 15 and 20%. So in all of our mandates, we can be up to 20%. Anything more than that, we don't want to be. We still want that price discovery that the market needs without being too overbearing in the market.
So on that one, when you see liquidity, naturally there will be a price adjustment to cater for price liquidity discount if there was no liquidity happening on the market, and that's sometimes, misunderstood between is that there is an effect on the price? Is it systematic? No, it's a liquidity. If a security is illiquid, investors may be at fear. They try to sell at a discount. With liquidity, you don't have to have that discount.
Exactly, and this is why an issuer appoints a liquidity provider, because The more liquid a share is, the more visible it is, the more it's on institutional and retail's radar as something they can trade in, trade out. And then you get the arbitrage between two similar companies, one at a big liquidity discount, and you narrow that liquidity discount, and that's reflected in their multiples.
Perfect. With that one, just because I know Mr. Abdel Hadi, who is like the CEO of BHM, is we were having that chat outside, and if you allow me to invite you back again to the stage, if that is fine with you, Mr. Abdel Hadi, join us to have a question on the business side and the commercial side, whatever you like, maybe. And thank you for taking it again with me. Maybe a closing type of questions regarding, but this time it's not about the broker side, it's about the market making, the liquidity provision. Like from that we've talked it too much, but I want to, just because we had that chat, and I'm bringing you to the hot seat from a business side, yeah? The value. Now Tabadul do allow market making and their services added to the platform, remote market making. Our market makers are operating in different exchanges. Yeah? Other market makers can come to ADX, but from your perspective, the business value, having this remote market making, having this remote liquidity provision via Tabadul, but the business value that we bring to the investors and issuers.
Okay. Now, let's transparently.
Of course it's transparent. It's a fireside chat. It's a hot seat.
Yeah. Now, basically, for market maker to be able to make money, the market itself should be liquid. A market maker to be active on an inactive and non-liquid market, in principle, that does not financially...
It has a huge risk.
Yeah. He can be screwed. Without going through details, I believe the key point here, you need to be a market maker to be appointed as a liquidity provider. If you are appointed as a liquidity provider in those, let's say, relatively illiquid markets, there are plenty of fundamentally strong companies that you can pitch and you can discuss with and to be appointed as a liquidity provider. Each of those companies, in principle, we've done a research and we found that there's a lot of companies that they're paying 10, 11, 12%, and they are fundamentally sound within the region, within Tabadul. So if you go and talk to the management, there is like, part of it is an education. The management, and I think we spoke about this, like plenty of share, let's say owners or let's say CEOs of companies, they still believe that how much am I going to pay dividend towards the year end. So they are not that much concerned about the liquidity of the company, and this is like ages ago. It's ended. There is an education part whereby the markets, along with the liquidity providers, they need to speak, and or you can reach out to the shareholders of the company to speak about the capital gain and the fair value of the share rather than distributing cash. It can actually save some money for the company. Instead of doing that cash dividends, is to appoint a liquidity provider to reflect fairly where the share price should be, and the management, good job of managing those companies. So LP will drive liquidity, then you will have market makers coming because there will be liquidity there.
And in previous experience, without going into the details, like a company is an issuer getting benefits by having the liquidity because that supported them to be included in international indices. Like any insights on that one?
Yeah, well, alhamdulillah, we've been successful, very successful. We have track record with that. I mean, this is like, I'll give a very simple example from the company, which is like, let's say, it's like, instead of being just in the local market, to go and get included in the MSCI small cap or the FTSE small cap. It's like a football club from local league into the Champions League. It's a huge difference. And this is the type of, you need to have those passive funds coming, and you need, like every company, all the shareholders there, the major shareholders would always love to see passive funds, those sort of investments from foreigners that will invest and stay. So once you succeed to get into the MSCI, let's say, or the FTSE standard index or the small cap, despite of you will get a passive flow, and that will reflect positively, A, visibility from the foreigners, B, liquidity, C, capital gain overall for all investors.
Amazing.
It's worth pointing out as well that a lot of institutions won't look at won't analyze a company or consider an investment into that company unless they're represented into the MSCI or FTSE indices.
And on that one, when analysts pick companies to do analysis on, I think one of the criteria is
Exactly.
look into their liquidity.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the liquidity profile is essential for an institution. And this is another thing that the liquidity provider does. It doesn't just provide bid and offer prices, it provides depth in the order book as well. And so the deeper an order book, the better the liquidity metrics. Generally, the narrower the bid-offer spread. And all these things feed into how an institution looks at their exit liquidity before their entry liquidity.
Two last one for you. Applying technology. I don't think you are doing this manually, putting all this orders.
No.
So if you quickly in 1 minute wrap
Sure.
up on your side,
Yeah.
technology side, let us know how that
So
works.
the technology is, we consider ourselves as much as a technology business as a trading business. We send, we might trade 7,000 times, we probably send over 80,000 orders to the market a day.
I want to quote that, 80,000 orders, correct?
Yeah. a
That's
day.
not manual.
No. And so we invest an awful lot in technology. Latency is something which has gone from being measured in minutes to microseconds over the last 10 years. And it's something we're always striving to stay ahead of everybody else in.
Electronic trading by institutions is 70% of all the institutional flow.
Yeah.
So technology, again.
Fair enough. And Mr. Abdel Hadi, your wrap-up is totally different. Putting the hat of the brokers now, when you get a client, like an investor, do they ask about the liquidity of the proposed asset that you provide them, and how you link that if there is a market maker LP or not? Because if I am sitting with the audience, I would say, why it's relevant to me having a market maker or not? So is that an important question you receive?
It is it's a very important question. From an investor point of view, in general, like you can say 80-90% of the companies that are backed by a liquidity provider and market making, they are approved, let's say, from a margin point of view or facilities. If I'm an investor that I needed some cash, I don't want to sell my shares, I can pledge them. The LTV that I'll get from banks from shares that have a liquidity provider, they will be much higher than the shares that they don't. And so many other benefits, getting in, getting out, like even for shares that are illiquid, let's say, and the definition of illiquid. If there is a liquidity provider and you have a block you want to sell or you want to buy a block, you can first approach the liquidity provider to ask if he has the inventory, he will give you. That's his role. This is part, and this is an important and very crucial part of scope of work, that he will provide the liquidity. If you want a block of trade, as an institution, we have like an instance, we have like few names. The institutions, they immediately pick the phone and they call the liquidity provider directly requesting him for a block. Or if they want to dispose a block, they will call him directly to avoid causing any disturbance. Yeah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, and thank you for sharing all this insight. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, esteemed speakers. Many thanks to everyone for joining today's session. I would like to invite all the speakers for group photo.